I'm Jess, and in this yoga video, I'm going to show you the most common variations and modifications to tailor your yoga practice for you. Be curious, explore, and leave your ego off of your mat. We're not judging ourselves and not judging others. Someone once said that comparison is the thief of joy, and they were so right. So the first thing that we are going to come into today that I'm going to show you is our child's pose. This is your foundational pose. This is the most important one besides Shavasana. So if we have a mat, we're going to use that. We are going to use a blanket, straps, and a block or two if you have those. Otherwise, you can just watch, follow along, and know what and how to use when you're in a yoga studio. So we're going to come down, and in our child's pose, traditionally our big toes will touch. We're going to sit on our heels, and these can be close together if we would like more of a spinal rounding or flexion, or these can be wide, and this will give us more of a hip opener. And if we feel a little constricted or tight, this will give us the space to breathe and to move. And we're just going to reach towards the top of our mat. That is your child's pose. If you ever need a moment to breathe, to reset, to take for yourself, that is your pose to get into when you're in a class. The next thing I'm going to go over is our vinyasa. And if you're new to yoga, you're probably thinking, what the heck is a vinyasa? Well, a vinyasa simply means linking your breath with your movement. So if we're standing or sitting, inhale, sweep your arms up. Exhale, lower them down. That is a vinyasa. We link our breath with our movement. If you're in a faster paced class, like a power class, sometimes teachers will say, take your vinyasa. And I'm going to go over what that is. Usually it's some form of a sun salutation A. So let's start at the top of our mat. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Exhale, bend into your knees, fold forward. Inhale, half lift, take the round out of your spine. Hands can rest on your shin or your thigh. Exhale, fold. Plant your palms down. So come on, finger pads, knuckles, all the way down to your palms. Bend into your knees as much as you need to as we step back into our plank pose. Now, if plank pose is not there for us for whatever reason, we're going to drop our knees. If your plank pose looks like this, or if it looks like this, drop your knees, okay? We're not trying to prove ourselves to anybody. This will be core tucked in tight, having a long straight line from your knees all the way to your head here, shoulders engaged. If we are in a plank pose with the wrong form, compromised form, then we run the risk of injury, and we're not actually building as much strength as we think we are. This will build us more strength in the long run. So from here, slowly lower all the way to your mat, keeping this long line. Palms can come down or come to your forearms. Inhale, slowly rise all the way up. If we're on our forearms, this is called our Sphinx pose. And if we're on our palms, this is our baby cobra. Exhale, come down. Inhale, shift into tabletop. Tabletop is where our wrists are underneath shoulders and knees are underneath hips. Re-ground into your palms if you need to. Finger pads, knuckles to palms. Tuck your toes. Exhale to come up and back into your down dog. Inhale, gaze to the top of your mat. Slowly walk to the very front, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, taking that round out of your spine. Exhale, fold. Bend into your knees, press your feet into the ground as we inhale, sweep our arms up. Exhale down. So that is a sample of our vinyasa, or sun salutation A. Now, in yoga, most of the times we teach keeping everything hugged in close together. And that works well if you have the bone structure for that. So for me, if I'm standing straight and relaxed, palms face out, my hands are pretty close to my hips. For a lot of people, if they stand this way, their hands come out farther just naturally. There's nothing they can do about it, it's just how their bones are. Now for these people, their plank, their hands might be wider than their shoulders. For me, it's comfortable to be close here. So play around with where your hands are. And I'm going to go through that sun salutation A one more time to give you a little bit more of an idea. Inhale, sweep your arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold, plant your palms to your mat. Step back into plank or lower your knees. Now, in a non-modified vinyasa, we are going to be in our plank, lower through chaturanga, and inhale into up dog or cobra. And if you're not there, that's perfectly fine. Drop your knees, lower to your mat, and inhale, rise to baby cobra or sphinx. Lower to your mat. Inhale, shift through tabletop. Tuck your toes. Exhale, hips come up and back, down dog. Inhale, gaze to the top of your mat. And slowly walk to the very front, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, rise up. And exhale, release. So that gives you, hopefully, a couple different options that you can take. And like with anything, always explore how it feels in your body. Some days might feel a little different than others, and that's okay. The next vinyasa that I'm going to go over is if you're pregnant. And you can also use this if you're not pregnant. It's a very nice vinyasa flow. I'm going to bring the blanket down. And a blanket is always a good option if you love your knees. If we're in our tabletop, use your blanket. Give yourself that extra padding, that extra cushion. But for this next vinyasa, we are going to sit on our heels. You can also take a block and place it in between here if we have any kind of knee issues or anything else that's going on. So wherever you're at, inhale, lift up, sweep your arms up overhead. Exhale, sit back down, hands at heart center. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, lower halfway, elbows hugged in close to the ribs. Inhale, tabletop. Tuck your toes. Exhale, hips come up and back, down dog. Inhale, lower your knees, tabletop. Exhale, bend into your elbows, lower halfway. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, sink your hips back to your ankles, knees wide if you're pregnant, lower child's pose. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, sit back, hands at heart center. So that is one round. And I'm going to go over it just one more time so you get the idea. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead, sit up. Exhale, palms touch at heart center. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, tabletop. Tuck your toes. Exhale, hips come up and back, down dog. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, sink your hips back, child's pose. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, come back into our seat, hands at heart center. So that is another option of a vinyasa for you. And next, I'm going to go over blocks. These are not used enough. Use your frickin' blocks, please. When I teach live person classes, I always know who is new to yoga and who has been to a few classes before, because the new people typically never use blocks. And the people that go to yoga classes regularly, they use their props because they don't let their ego dictate what they do. New people tend to push past pain, push past their range of motion. They're uncomfortable. They hate what they're doing to their bodies. It doesn't feel good. So please make it feel good. Don't hurt yourself. So one of the most common things that I see is in triangle pose. Triangle pose, people tend to try and reach their hand all the way to the ground. They think that this is the goal, to touch the mat. And then they lift their arm and they look like this. Their chest is collapsed and they get no benefit. At least I don't think they do. The goal of triangle pose is to open up your chest. See the difference here. I have this long straight line, my chest is open, I get this nice stretch in my thigh. This is your triangle pose. Another common one is in our pyramid pose, if we're leaning over our forward leg. So sometimes people rest on their fingertips here, if they're here. Sometimes they can't get that far. And either or is fine. You can rest right here. This is perfect. You can rest on your fingertips. That is also perfectly fine. But what's more comfortable is to bring the ground closer. And that's what the blocks do. They bring the ground closer to you. These can be used for all sorts of things. They have 3 heights, remember that. So play around with these blocks. Keep them handy. Our next one is our strap. And I don't think we use this one enough. So sometimes we like to take binds, and this helps tremendously. One of the binds is touching our hands. And if you can, that's fantastic. If you can't, use this strap. And there you go. You're doing the exact same thing without straining yourself. Another way is to make a loop in the strap, like a belt. And sometimes, if we stretch the front of the thigh, it feels really nice to do this stretch. But if we can't reach the ankle or our foot, loop it in, pull it tight, and then bring your leg behind you. So this is another way that we can use our strap. And again, there are so many different ways that we can use these. Bring them to your class, use them in the studio, and let your creativity take over. One of the other ones that I want to go over is pigeon pose. So pigeon pose, you can come into it from tabletop or down dog, your choice. And I'm just going to show off the right ankle. The right ankle behind the left wrist. And when I say behind, I just mean in between the wrist and the knee. Doesn't matter where it goes. Slide back as far as you can. Now you can place a blanket underneath this hip if it raises. Or if this is uncomfortable, if this does not work for your body for any reason, don't do it. Come to your back. Take your right ankle over your left knee. You can stay here. You can gently press into your right thigh. You can bring your hands through, clasp them behind your thigh or your shin, and gently pull closer. And you're going to get the same exact stretch. And again, each day will be different. Okay? Listen and honor your body each and every day. It's not the same, and that can be a little bit frustrating at times, but try and go into a class without judgment, with curiosity and exploration. You showed up to your mat for you, hopefully, not for anybody else, so you don't have to show off. Use all of these modifications and variations. Let me know what you think. I hope that they've been helpful for you. And there are so many more that I did not go over. So like I said, always listen to your body. And I encourage that exploration. So if you're in a position, if you're in a pose, and it just doesn't feel quite right, move and adjust. And see if there's a way that would feel better for you. And of course, if you're in a live class, always ask the teacher. They are full of knowledge. So, Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. And like I said, I hope this helped. Namaste means the light in me sees and honors